A feathered Jack and Jill. When our Genevieve was a little girl, we bought for her a pair of Pandam chickens. She named them Jack and Jill. Jill was a businesslike little speckled hen who always seemed to know what she wanted, and she got it, and what she had to do, and she did it, and who her lord and master was, and that was Jack. Jack was a cheerful-looking fellow. He wore a cap of green and gold, with a red comb on top, and red wattles for a necktie, and his coat was a coat of many colors, like Joseph's, while his green and red tail feathers arched proudly out behind. Jack was a handsome fellow, but more than that, Jack was a brave little fellow. He was the tiniest cock in the poultry yard, but when he came forth and strutted down the walk with Jill just behind him, every big old rooster got out of the way. For Jack was ready to fight anything that said this walk did not belong to him and Jill. And when he did fight, that little bantam Jack was all over the other fighter until he turned tail and ran. Jack and Jill were always together. Jack was fond of his little wife and she adored Jack. She was quite able to scratch for herself and to find all the grain and seeds and bugs and worms she wanted to eat. But if she did that very long by herself, Jack would make a great fuss over what he had found, chuckling and chattering and making a great pretence of scratching. And then Jill would come running as much as to say, "Oh, dear Jack, have you found something? I know it's better than anything I could find. Let me see." And Jack would let her see and peck a bit to make a choice kernel of corn or a sunflower seed or a pebble of just the right size fly over to Jill. And then with a little peck of her bill she'd pick it up and seem to say, "Why, thank you, Jack, thank you. That was the best thing ever." Jack's business was to take care of Jill, and he did it all day long. But Jill's business was to lay eggs, and she did it once a day. She had a special nest where she always sat to lay her egg, and Jack always went and stood by her until that egg was laid. Of course, her eggs were not so large as the big hen's eggs, but she and Jack thought they were much prettier. And when Jill had laid that precious bantam egg, off the nest she would come with a great clatter and cackle, and run out to the yard with Jack right behind her, clattering and crowing. He seemed to say, "Who says this isn't the best egg in the whole wide world? I dare any old Shanghai or Plymouth Rock to say my Jill doesn't lay the best egg there is." One day we heard a great noise out at the poultry house. All the chickens were making a great fuss, but Jack's voice rose above them all. We ran out, and there we saw Jack, but no Jill. Jack was charging back and forth at something that seemed to be in a rat hole under the house. That something would dart out and back like a streak of lightning, and Jack would fly at it and peck with all his might. In a minute the thing darted out and ran into the chicken house. Then we saw it was a weasel, one of those cruel little animals that catch anything they can and suck its blood. I jumped into the poultry house after it, slammed the door, and picked up a club. I tried to hit the weasel, but it was so quick, jumping around and up and the windows, trying to get out, that it was some time before I could hit it and lay it out dead. Then I looked around, and what did I see but poor little Jill dead on the floor. The weasel had found her while she was on her nest, and had grabbed her by the neck and killed her. But Jack flew at him and struck at him. The weasel bit a toe of Jack's foot, but the plucky little cock drove the cruel beast out and under the house. It was too late, though, to save poor Jill. We buried her with honors under the maple tree, and Genevieve wept, and we nearly all cried. But Jack was stricken to the heart. No more did he strut down the walk. There was no Jill to follow him, nor to come at his call, no Jill any more to protect. He had done his best to save her, but he could not do it. Now he moped, and his feathers dropped day after day. And though he crowed in the morning, it was a mournful little crow, not very long, not very loud. Genevieve coaxed him and put the daintiest titbits before him, but we never saw him eat. He mourned and mourned for his lost Jill. Not many days after, we went out to the poultry house to gather the eggs, and there on Jill's nest sat Jack. His cheerful little head dropped to the floor, all the life gone out of him. His heart had died within him, and he spent his last moments where his beloved little Jill had so often sat to lay the egg over which they both would go forth and rejoice. We buried Jack by the side of Jill under the maple tree, for there, I think, if he could have told us, was where he wanted to lie.